God fucking damn it, guys. I am on my period again. Every time I'm on my period, I always act super surprised, but I'm genuinely surprised, even though this happens every single month. Well, sometimes it doesn't, but most months to me, I still get super surprised because I just don't think about it since it's so routine in my life. And then when I get it, I'm like, oh, this week again, which is why I wanted to do an episode on this. And it's been on my list of podcasts to do eventually, but I feel like recording it smack dab in the middle of my period is the perfect time because I can basically talk about it in real time. As much as I really want to just go off about all the things about periods, I'm going to stick to starting with Harlow Buffalo first. So the high for the past week, this one's a little bit of a low high. So the day before my period, which I realize now is probably the reason why I was more emotional than usual, I woke up on Tuesday just not in the mood to start work. And I was not doing well. Every little thing made me really upset. And I cried 3 times before the workday was even over. I remember just doing my work silently on Excel, copying and pasting cells. And I was just sitting there crying, but just continuing my work and pretending it was completely normal, that I was mentally breaking down while I was doing work. Even though nothing crazy happened, it was just not a good day. And my plan for after work was to see my dad before I went to New York. We had movie tickets for 4:15, so I'm supposed to finish work at 2 o'clock because that's technically 5 p.m. EST. And so 2 p.m. rolls around and I'm still stuck in a meeting, and then I get added to 2 more meetings, and somehow it's 3:15 and I'm why the hell am I still here? And I check my phone to see how far away the drive is going to be, and it was an hour long to get there, which is problematic because my meeting wasn't over and the movie started at 4:15. So I was there's no way I'm going to make this. So I call my dad at 3:15 and I'm there's no way I can make it. I'm still at work, and I just start crying out of nowhere. And I'm so sad about it because I was excited about it. I haven't been to the movies in a while, and I just really wanted to take a break from work. I was just so over it. And my dad, he was so sweet. I love the way that he reacted. He was why are you crying over, $15? $15 is nothing. Don't worry about it. Finish your work and then you can still come over and we'll have dinner like we planned. And we can walk the dogs and it'll be fine. And he just handled it so well. And it made me feel way better very quickly. I left for work at 4, I think. Yeah, 4 o'clock. And we picked up some dumplings and we cooked them and they were so good. And then we walked the dogs during sunset and it was so nice. And just being around with my family is just always super nice. We don't have to do anything and it's just enough. So it was a bad day that turned good, and that was my high. And for my low, this is one of my biggest pet peeves about New York, and not a lot of people would agree, and some people might be what the hell are you talking about? But I hate returning packages in New York specifically. At home, it's fine. I don't mind driving to UPS and returning it. But here in New York, just walking a block or two to the UPS, USPS, whatever, it pisses me off. And I just happened to go on a shopping spree last month, and I talked about this in my last episode. And I got back home to New York with an infinite amount of packages, insane, at least 10 packages. And I had many clothes to try, which was very exciting. But half of them didn't work out. So I had to return multiple items to 4 stores. And I had to package them up, figure out a way to print out the label, walk to the multiple stores in time, and it was just so annoying. And that was my low for this week. And for my Buffalo, when I left home, something just weird, which is kind of a low, that happened. So Elvie, my dog, I think she knew that I was leaving, and she's seen me like travel away from home so many times. I think she got the gist of it. Like every time I bring out a suitcase and have to stuff it, I think she knows I'm leaving. I do it so often. I go home so often, and I'm just traveling so often, thankfully. Yeah, so she's seen me pack up and leave several times, and she was acting so weird before I left. So I think she really did know. She was like bundling herself into a ball for my last day, and she was just like watching me pack, and she was just being so sad, and it was just making my heart break. And the night before I went back to New York, she did something she never does, and she knows that she's not allowed to do. So we don't allow her on beds, and I was laying on my mom's bed, about to go to sleep, and Elvie is just like sandwiched between the pillows, and she's like rolled up in her ball again, and she just sits there, and she knows she's not allowed to be on the bed. So my mom and I are like, get off the bed, like you're not supposed to be there. But she's being so cute, and she like does not get off, and she just like stares at us. And she ends up sleeping right next to my head, and it's so cute. So I think she did know that I was going to leave, but I'm happy that she doesn't think I'm dying, because I think in the beginning she thought we were dying every time we left the home. And so that's a good thing, and really sad and weird. Dogs know a lot more, I think, and they just seem way more in touch with what's going on than a lot of people give them credit for. But yeah, that's my Hello Buffalo. Okay, just a few things that I just want to point out about periods. Well, most people who are listening to this, I'm pretty sure, if not all the people that are going to listen to this episode, I'm pretty sure they're going to be girls, because guys are probably, from what I know, usually are disgusted by it or don't really care. But I just want to talk about a few things. Why didn't anyone tell me this before I started my period? Why wasn't this included in the whole like sex ed, period ed class that I had when I was in elementary school? Just so many things. First off is the fact that you can bleed super heavily and that you can leak. Okay, that happens to me so often. I just didn't know that periods varied so much between people. Like some people have excruciating pain when they have periods, and some people have no symptoms at all. And then there's some people who bleed like for 2 days and nothing. And then there's other people who are like heavy bleeders? Whatever. I'm included in like the middle, where some of my periods are like insanely bloody, and then the other ones are like nothing, like it's like a few drops, and I'm like, what's going on? I specifically want to talk about the heavy bleeding thing, because that's the most common for me, especially in the beginning of my period. I bleed insane. I bleed insane. And this period that I just started this week, which is, I guess, a little bit of a TMI, but who cares? Oh my God, it was crazy. Yesterday, I was just doing my job, sitting at home, working from home, and literally in 5 hours from waking up, I bled through 3 overnight pads, like overnight heavy-duty long pads. I bled through them, through my pants, 3 pairs of pants, and one of those pants were new pair of jeans, which I was so angry about. But anyways, 3 pairs of pants, and they got all over my chair. They got all over the pants. It was terrible, and I had to wash them in the shower right away so that they wouldn't stain. It's just so annoying, and I just don't understand like how that can happen. And I know I'm talking about this like super passionately, but I'm just so confused, because I was talking to my friend about this, and it's just like we have one hole that the blood comes out of. And I don't know how the blood ends up on the other freaking side of my underwear. I swear I don't do anything except sit all day in the same exact position, in the same exact chair, and it just like goes everywhere. And this happens all the freaking time to my clothes. And I know this isn't a common experience because my friends are like, what the hell is wrong with you? And my mom's like, dude, you sit weird, or like you're down there is not made the same way as everyone else, because that is not happening to anybody else. But I swear, I sit the exact same way. I just don't know how I soak through 3 pads in 5 hours. By 12 o'clock, before I even had lunch, I was just bleeding through everything. And it was just crazy. And I just want to say, it's one thing for it to be annoying during daytime, you know, when you're out in public and you just have blood on your ass, and sometimes you leave blood on, you know, public seats, which leads, actually I want to say like a little story, because this one time I was in the car with my ex-boyfriend, and I never told him this, but we were going somewhere for a date or something, and I bled through my pants, and I never told him, but like I managed to clean it up later, because when we got back into the car, I just brought back like a wet towel and I dabbed it very subtly, but it was so embarrassing. And thank God that day I was wearing black pants, so you couldn't see it, but I did get it on his seat, and it was pretty bad because he like loved cars and he loved his car, and so I'm also glad that his seats were black. It was just scary. But anyways, that was a tangent. The other annoying thing about being a heavy bleeder is at night, when I freaking bleed through my pad at night. And sometimes it's like you sleep super well, so you don't think to wake up in the middle of the night to change your pad. And just an FYI, if there are boys listening to this, usually you change your pads around 4 to 5 hours. That's what they recommend on the packages, or what they averaged out. And so that's why 3 pads in 5 hours is insane. And that's also why you have to wake up in the middle of the night usually to change your pad. So there's so many things with sleeping, just the position that you have to sleep in. Like I have to sleep like army position, because if I sleep on my side, the blood's obviously going to get all over my leg and just all over my sheets, and I have white sheets, so it's like super scary. So I have to sleep with like a peewee, like dog, like right now I'm using like to be honest, I'm using a dog training pee pad, just because I ran out of like the human pee mat thingy. Like I have those disposable, and I just lay it out on my sheet, and it's like saved my life, because if I bleed, like the only thing I have to wash is my pants and not my sheets. And I've done it way too many times before that, so thank God I have that. I also have a waterproof layer underneath my sheets and over my mattress, so if worse comes to worse, for some reason I moved the pee pad or whatever away and I got blood onto the sheets, it wouldn't get to the mattress. So that's another precaution I have set up for myself. But I wish people told me that it's super uncomfortable to sleep, that you have to like sleep a certain way when you're on your period, which sucks. You can't turn or anything. So I look like an NPC when I look like an NPC regardless when I sleep, which is, you know, not a lot of people know that unless you sleep with me. That's like literally no one. And I hate getting up. Like there's been so many times where I've gotten up at like 2-3 a.m. and I'm like, damn, there's blood everywhere on my pants and I have to wash it. And sometimes I stay up for like 30 minutes just like scrubbing in the bathroom, and I'm so tired and I just want to go to bed. I wish people had told me about that. Just another thing about periods, that if you don't have them, you wouldn't know about this. Or if you don't bleed this heavily, you wouldn't know about that. The other thing is irregular periods. Not every period comes at the exact time it's supposed to, which is super stressful, because there can be a million things wrong that I assume are wrong with me when I don't have my period, or when it comes too soon. But specifically when I don't have my period, thinking I'm freaking pregnant, which is not a problem now. Like I don't care anymore about that, because there's obviously nobody that can make me pregnant. There's no freaking possible way that I'm pregnant. But when I was dating people in high school and in college, I was freaking the fuck out that I was pregnant every time I would skip my period, or it would come like even a day or two late. I remember looking up online, this is so embarrassing, I would look up like, can you get pregnant from not having sex? Basically, like doing anything besides sex, could you get pregnant? And it was just always the question. I remember calling like a pregnancy line, and I remember shaking in my bedroom, and they're like, did you guys penetrate? Like, was penetration part of anything that happened that night? And I was like, no, like we didn't even take off our clothes. They're like, no, honey, there's no way. And so many pregnancy scares. But also, the good thing about getting your period when you're, dating somebody is that you're like, okay, thank God, I'm not pregnant. Periods just don't come when they're supposed to. And being stressed, eating differently, like when I had my eating disorder, my periods were super irregular. That's one of the symptoms, because your body is like working hard to maintain its health when you're eating super weird, so you can miss a period or get super awkward, irregular period cadences. And then also when you're stressed, like when I've been really stressed about tests or in work, I will literally skip periods. And that's when I know it was really bad. So if I do get a regular period, I'm like, thank God. For the most part, I think I'm in good health. Another thing is being on your period and sneezing, laughing, or having a bloody nose. Sneezing and laughing is insane. When you sneeze and laugh with your friends and you're like trying not to make a face, that like a bunch of blood and the lining of your vagina just shot out of your vagina. Not making a face to show that you're concerned whether or not the blood went to the right place, aka like landed on the pad and not your pants. It takes a lot. Like there's been times where I'll like laugh, but then I'll feel it come out and I'm like, where did that go? Like, did that just end up on my pants, or did that go in the right place? And I'll have to excuse myself sometimes, and I'm like, I have to use the restroom, and I'll like run to the restroom and check, and I'm like, okay, thank God, like it didn't go in my pants. Or like sometimes it's like, shit, like it just went all over my pants. Oh my God, this is like so TMI, but like I'll have to like stuff napkins onto the area. If I'm in a public place, like I'll have to like tape toilet paper and dab the area. I'll have to wait for everyone in the public bathroom to leave, and then I'll come out and I'll use the sink water and I'll dab like the toilet paper, and then I'll like clean up my pants, and I'll be in the bathroom for 30 minutes because I'm trying to get the blood off my pants. It's super freaking annoying and like stressful. Sometimes when you forget a pad, or you don't even know your period's starting, and it starts when you're in a public place, and then I have to literally stuff napkins on top of my underwear so that it could be like a temporary pad for the time being. And just having to go to random strangers so many times and ask them for a pad, and it saves my life, but it's like so nerve-wracking for some reason, even though most people experience periods. So it's just another thing. But yeah, sneezing and laughing, very scary experience when you're on your period. And then having a bloody nose is just super weird for me. I don't know if other people feel the same or if it's just me, but when I'm having a bloody nose and I'm also my period, I just feel weird because there's like blood coming out of multiple areas, and I'm like plugging multiple parts of my body to keep blood from coming out. Isn't there enough blood coming out of my vagina that, there doesn't need to be more coming out of my nose hole? I don't know. It's just super weird for me when it happens. Another thing, this one has already been talked about, and thank God they told me about this when I was in my sex ed, period ed class. The whole bloating, pimples, your emotions, like all of those typical hormonal reactions that you get. I already knew about that, and I'm glad that they told me about that. But something that they didn't tell me about is that you can start getting these symptoms before you even have your period. I actually don't get a lot of symptoms when I'm on my period, except sometimes I'm bloating and sometimes I'll have insomnia or I'll be extremely, extremely fatigued. That's usually what I'll have during my period. But before my period, not the week before, but for me, it's 2 weeks before. And again, what I'm speaking about and all these symptoms and my own experience is my own experience, because every girl has a completely different period cadence, different period story. You know, they expect different things from their period than other people. I'm just solely speaking about myself. I don't get much symptoms during my period. So right now I'm like fine. But for me, it's 2 weeks before. I'll break out. My emotions get a little funky. And the biggest one for me is my eating. I just eat super weird 2 weeks before my period. Like I will eat insane for like 2 people. It's like there's like a baby living in my body and I need to feed myself and the baby. But except obviously, there is no baby living in my body. When I start eating like that and I start feeling hungry like several times a day, I'm like, oh God, this is my PMS symptoms again. This time I forgot that my period is a thing and that I get periods. So when I had that eating pattern 2 weeks ago, which I talked about in one of my podcasts, I was like, what's going on? And yes, I was like stressed and things like that, but I think a huge factor of it was I was actually hungry, and it was because I was in the middle of my PMS. That's pretty much all I could think of that I wanted to talk about for this period talk. And I mean, if you know, you know. I don't even know who's listening to this podcast. It really could be anybody. It could be my family members. It could be my friends listening to this. It could be my guy or girlfriends. I don't even know who's listening, but hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. And yeah, I know this was like a huge TMI. It doesn't matter who it is. It's like a normal bodily thing, and I feel like more people should talk about it. And it shouldn't be like this weird, unspoken thing. It's just like any other process that happens as you grow up. But anyways, enjoy the rest of your week. Have the best week ever, and bye.